Hi, Ann Cornick from Paintnporcelain. I'm here to teach beginners how to get started in China painting and also to recruit experienced painters to paint along with me. And today we're going to work on the final fire of our apples. My final fire, because I'm doing 2 plates on this one, came out like this. And I'm real pleased. You can tell which apple's on top, which apple's on the bottom, and the background's real nicely smoothed out. So I'm pretty pleased with the way that this turned out. My second fire turned out more like this. So you can see it's much lighter. Let me get there. There we go. And we need to get the depth in and that kind of thing. Colors that we're going to use: Persian and blood. If you're a beginner, you probably have Pompadour. I would say get blood. Because the blood is going to be one of the darkest reds you can get, and it doesn't fire out as easily. And even if you mix it with pomp a little bit, it'll give you nice depth of color. I use blue-black a lot, so if you're following my studies, blue-black you probably need, because to try to mix it yourself, you're not going to get the same exact color. Plus, blue-black, it's one of those colors that just goes on beautifully. I use chartreuse. Now, if you can't get chartreuse, you can mix yellow and moss green and get a yellow green, or you can buy a yellow green. Chartreuse is one of those things that they don't make it up here. We can't get it up here, so it might be one of those things you'd have difficulty getting. And then moss green, we're going to use a shading green. That's another one that if you haven't bought it, you probably should. It has a trace of blue in it, and it goes on as a nice deep green. Rich brown, any yellow will do, a warm brown green, and then I use a cool shadow occasionally. We're going to start out with our monster brush. I suspect this is a craft brush, and it's an 18. I really like it because it's nice and fat and chunky. This is what it looks like. And you can see from the side when I say fat and chunky, I mean fat and chunky. Okay, so we're going to start with this section right here in the middle, because I want that really super dark. It's the depth of the whole piece. It's the focal point, I think, as far as the deepest part of the piece. And if you get it on the apples, big deal. Smooth it out, and as you smooth it out, you want to take a little of that blue, and I would use a little blood red with it, and go right over the apple below it. Okay, and the same thing with the part of the apple that's up at the top here. I would go right over that. There we go. Because that's in the shadow from all these leaves being there, and this one's in the shadow from being behind everything else. The other thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to put a little blue here and kind of take off that highlight. It's still there, but it's a little more in shadow. And I'm just gonna, remember last time we talked about pull across, and that will kind of round out your apple. I'm also going to, put a little more red down here. Here we go. And I think I need a little more red up here. I'm sorry, I know I'm turning the plate. I'm trying not to turn it as much as I have in the past. I watched the video for YouTube that I was preparing, and oh my gosh, it made me dizzy. So I apologize to those of you that I've turned. So there's what I've done so far. We're just working on this apple, and I put in the depth. I'm going to put in a little depth right around here. Pulling it out. You know, I talked about using a big brush for a big area, and that's what I'm doing. And then we're going to go on to this apple. I'm going into my blue-black full load, side load with a blood red, and I'm just going to do under here. That's where the other apple is on top. I'm going to turn the plate a little bit and come down the side. I'm using C strokes. And then I'm going to kind of go across a little bit to round out that apple. Okay? Now we're on the green. Again, I'm going to take the blue and I'm going to go back here. This is actually behind the other guy. And kind of C-stroke that in. And I want to take, I wiped off my brush and just bring this out a little over here because he's on top. And I noticed that he kind of got in the background there. And I've got a little line, so I'm going to gently move the line. See how that brings this guy more on top? That's what I want. Oops, there we go. He's also on top on this side. And so I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to wipe off a little of the color there and then redo some of it so that it looks like this guy's on top. Okay. Now I'm going to take the blue. I'm going to go in here pretty dark with the blue to put it under. And I put a little red on this side. It's the blood red right here, because I want a little more red in there. And then I'm just going to pull it across. Oh, I should clean my... So we use, I use mineral spirits to clean my brush. And I use a medium called Medium Plus you can get from Dallas to paint with. Okay, now we're going up to this one, and it's just blood red. I have some blue up in here. Can you see that? I'm going to wipe that out like that. There we go. And I'm going to do the red down the side. Well, there are studies on my website. Let me just put the link there for you so you have it. There are also a lot of freebies there if you haven't gotten any of the freebies. And you can, it'll help get you started. And then the studies are $5. You can download them instantly, which is really nice. You can get it instantly to your computer, and you can get started on them. And it's fairly simple. So please feel free to take advantage of that. You can have them like as soon as you want them, and you just print them out, and the colors should be pretty true. I'm going to put a little more red up here. I put red down here to give it a little oomph at the base, but I don't want to go too dark on this guy because this is one of those that's on top, and I want to keep it light so it looks like it's on top. So I think I'm pretty happy with that. I think I'd like a little more red up in this area up here, so I'm going to do that. There we go. I like, especially down here, the 3 colors. I like the 2 colors over here. I'm nuts about the different colors. That's something I really like. If we're going to finish out this apple, we should take a liner, which I have here. Dip it in the rich brown. I'm rolling it like this so that I have a long liner. That's the way it looks. And you're just going to put, can you see what I'm doing? These little tickies in down here. And just do a little thing there so you have it. Okay? You know what I noticed? Let me just fix this. I don't like the way this looks here. So I'm going to pull it back while it's still wet. Remember with this paint, if you use the Medium Plus especially, it tends to set up and then you're stuck. So you want to make sure that you get the color on while you can. Alrighty, now we're going to go to the leaves. I'm changing to my number 10. I'm going to go into the chartreuse, side load with a little shading, and I'm just going to start with this leaf. And what I'd like to be able to do, ideally, is just put the color on and leave it. And I'm hoping I can, but I don't think I have enough oil on my brush. It's dragging, so let's try that again. It might be my chartreuse. I had that problem last time. There we go. I just want to put it on Here I want some blue, so I'm going to put the blue in. The blue over the green will instantly give you that depth that you're looking for. And I even brush over this whole leaf pretty much. Oops, I just want it darker. Come on, come on. Here we go. I just want it darker there so that that leaf is almost totally hidden. And then I'll just pull out some of the color there. Because I'm going to stay in the blue, and I'll tell you why. It's kind of cool. If you use this blue, you can add a little green to it, but you don't have to. If you use the blue black, which is what I'm using, the blue black, you can actually create the shadow on the leaf without having to go back in and add green. So I'm just using the blue black. Oops, am I up high enough? There we go. I'm just using the blue black and adding it gently to the edge. Okay, so again, I'm going with my blue only, my blue black, and I'm just doing where I want to get some of this color in, the shading in. Oh, not that dark. There we go. So I go to the middle, away from the middle, and I'm not doing the top part so much, I'm doing more at the bottom. And here, this is in a real shadow over in here. So I'm going to really and put a little on the end. You see what I'm doing so far? I'm going to do a little bit along the side there, and I'm going to do a little bit down the middle. Oh, let me show you. I'm going to do this right down the middle here. Can you see how I'm doing that? It should make it look more like an open leaf. And then I'm going to feather it out ever so gently. You can also take, where's my Paintnporcelain? Here it is. You can also take your Paintnporcelain. This is a Paintnporcelain. It's a real skinny little, looks like what used to be on the ends of toothbrushes, and just go along the edge there. And that'll quicken up your edge a little bit, make it look nice. And then I'm going to take a little bit of this blue and go down in here, and I'm just going to wash it over this guy because he's close to the apple. Oops. Got a little more in the apple than I wanted to. There, get it out. And there's this stupid leaf. I now realize it's a stupid leaf. That's that one that I never should have put in here that I did. So I'm just going to cut across the bottom like this. It's in shadow. So I'm just going to let it, oops. That blue is really coming on strong today. I'm just going to let it stay in shadow. Put a little blue on the edge of it too. Okay, now you can add back in moss green. You could add back in chartreuse, wherever you think you need a little light. Clean your brush. Okay, that's what I have so far. I put all the blue in where I want the depth. And now I'm going back with the chartreuse and I'm just adding it wherever I think it is the chartreuse that's giving me the problem. I want a little there. You might even add a little bit of blood red. Yeah. Now, these are not the color of apple leaves, by the way. I will tell you that right now. But if you're like me, I frankly don't care. I like the colors are working for me. the apples are what are important, and so that's why I'm sticking with the colors that I have. And I'm mixing my greens. So on one I might use shading green, on another one I'll take chartreuse and use moss green, on another one I'll take chartreuse and use brown green. I'm just sort of mixing it up, but I'm trying to stick with the blue family. So shading green and the blues are the things that I'm really trying to stick to. There. That was shading green. Oops, let me go back. There. Okay. And I'm going to put a little shading green here. Okay. Now, you can see right here, my stem doesn't reach my leaf. There are a lot of times that's going to happen to you. And when it does, don't worry about it. You can fix it. But first I want to put in the background. The only place so far I've put in the background is here. I want to bring it out now, and that's one of the reasons I used a lot of blue on my leaves, is because, well, if I mess them up a little bit, I can correct it because it's going to be blue in the background right there anyway. So that was my method to my madness. Going back to my fat brush, so I'm going into my blue black now, and I'm doing my background. Now here I have some shadow leaves. I'm going to be painting over those shadow leaves. They're already blue, so they're going to still show up. You don't have to worry if you paint over something that's there. See how I went over them? They're still there. And then, you know, if you really wanted some highlight, you could pull it out, but I don't need highlight there. And I'm going to go over this area. Oops, get some blue here. I'm going to go over this area. This is my background. I'm trying to take smooth strokes. You notice I haven't done my stems yet. And the reason is because I know I'm going to be all the heck all over the branches and the stems. So I don't want to. And the reason I learned all that, you say, how did you know that? Is I did 2 plates, right? So you do the first plate and you go, oh, this doesn't work. And then you do the second plate and you go, oh, this will work much better. And I take notes and I write it down, and that's how come I can tell you guys what order to do things and to get it the way you want it. Or at least so it doesn't smear quite so much. Okay, and I'm fading out as I come this direction because I've got the light up in here. Then I'm coming over here and I'm putting my blue in. When you feather, which is what we do in the background after we put the color in. So, okay, that wasn't a good example. But when I put the color in like this, I use almost like C strokes to put the color in the background. Then I go back, turn the plate, and feather by holding the very end of my brush. I feather one way, and then I feather the other way. If you feather back towards the color, it will bring the color to a faded edge, which is what you want because this edge is going to be green out here. Dates. That's the other nice thing. If the studies are on my website and they go online and you, oops, I'm going out too far with the blue there, and you maybe miss the YouTube isn't on there, you know, and you can't get the YouTube link, and that's what you use for your painting to follow me. If you've already subscribed to the study and already bought it, every time I update it, you will get an update with the new information. So you're never without it. See here, this is a good example. I went out too far with the, see how it has that edge, and you don't want it because you're going to be fading into different colors here. So I'm just going to start pulling it back. Got to be careful though, because we already did the leaves in this section. Okay, now I just did a little blue around everything because and now I'm going to look at it. I'm going to show it to you, and then I'm going to pull it away and look at it. This is the way you should look at it and see where it needs to have more smoothing. It's online, and the studies will have both the beginner palette and what I call a full palette. So if you want to follow the full palette, it's online. If you want to follow the beginner palette, because you only have a minimal number of paints, then you can. So it hopefully gives you options so that you don't always have to go out and buy paints. I used to hate that. But there are some paints you may want to buy just to get closer, and the blue is probably one of them, I would say. Now, I'm using a dry brush, and the reason I found I use a dry brush to smooth the background is it doesn't seem to cause any issues. It does help to smooth out the background. And you're not putting paint where you don't want it. You're just moving the paint around. So I pull from the edge down because I want it to be smooth, but I also want it to fade out. Same thing here. Can you see what I'm doing here? Here. And I'm just doing long strokes. The other thing is it doesn't leave lines like you do with a brush that has, let me move this up a little, a brush that has oil on it. It won't interfere with a lot of the paint that's on the plate. It only works on the part that you're actually working on. So if you're like me and you're one of those people that just can't always get it smooth, take a dry brush and smooth over very lightly like you're feathering. Okay, this is what we have so far. This is unusual. On the other plate, I had some yellow in. Can you see that up at the top? I like this better. I don't think I'm going to put the yellow in. In fact, I think I'm going to go over the yellow on the other plate and do another coat. Okay, we have a couple of things left to do. I'm going to take my liner and I'm going to do this stem up here, and then I'm going to fix up the other stems with just a little bit of highlight. So this one, I do it backhand. Let me come up here so you can try to see. I come up like this. Oops. And there's a little bit of a stem right there. That's a little dark. I'm going to take my dry brush. Just pull a little of the color out. Okay, the dry brush is fabulous. Keep one handy. Then down in here, well, this is probably the wrong brush to use. Let me get my number 4. This is my number 4, it's rounded. I'm going to dip it in my oil. And I made a mistake here, so I'm just going to pull it down. Instead of wiping it off and starting over, I think I can just correct it that way. And I'm going to go down here and get this little guy down here. Okay. Turn the paint plate, because you always turn the plate to paint. One thing I'm learning from watching this is I don't want the stem too dark. In fact, this may even be too dark. So I'm going to wipe it out. Because I don't want to really take away from the apples. So there, I just put enough brown on there to kind of give it an oomph. Can you see that there? Okay. And you remember I had that, this guy up here that I hadn't attached. I'm going to attach it now. And this one. Make sure this one's attached. Make sure you can see the, oops. Oh, that's a shame. Got my finger in that. There we go. Make sure you've got this one and this one. Okay. Good enough. Okay. Now, I might want to try what Mary did as far as using her pen on the, Mary Petoskey, that is, on the veins, but I'm a little more comfortable sticking to my liner. My liner works really well. And so I'm just going through now. Places like this, I think could use some veins. Oops. You have to be careful with veins. You have to really do them quickly and lift. Otherwise they get too punky at the bottom there. Notice I used the dry brush again. That dry brush is a godsend. This one could use some veins. This one has some. This one could use some veins. This one. Okay, there are my veins. Can you see them all? I think I'm a little too close. That's probably part of the problem. There we go. Can you see the veins? Now we're going to do the outside edge. It's really the only thing left to do. And I'm going to do that using the big brush again. I'm going to clean it thoroughly. I'm going to use moss green. Why? Because I don't have any plates that have a green edge on them. And I just thought I should have a variety instead of always painting the same colors. Okay, I'm putting the green on. A couple final touches here. Alrighty, I put the green on. So now I'm holding it far away so you can see the whole plate. It's not quite as smooth as I'd like, so here comes the dry brush again. I'm just wiping it off to make sure no blue or red got on it. And I'm just feathering it back. I'm not even holding it. And again, I take your finger or take a Kleenex or take a Q-tip, go around the edges. The last thing you want is to have the edge of your plate be covered with paint. And you don't think it is. You think, oh, I did a good job. I didn't get any on them. Look how much I got. Can you see that on there? I got a ton. Okay, this is the way this guy turned out. It's wet, so I've got to be careful how I hold it. I'm tickled pink. And I'll show you. I think I like it a lot better than... Now, this one's been fired, but I like it a lot better than this one. I want to get rid of the light up in that corner. I think I like the darkness all the way around. So that's the end of our apples. I hope you enjoyed the program, and I hope you'll take a minute to subscribe so that other people can learn more about China painting and we can get the word out to more people. You also can look at the links below. My Paintnporcelain.com website has a lot of freebies and printables for new and experienced painters, as well as studies, supplies, and even some of my hand-painted china. So thank you again, and I'll see you next time.